Hello everyone, this is Shannon from That's So Poe, and today I'm doing a review of Arboreality by Rebecca Campbell. This is a cli-fi novella that was published last year by Stelliform Press, a small Canadian press that focuses on climate emergency and environmental justice topics. And I thought that Arboreality was just such a fantastic novella that I really wanted to share with you why I loved it so much. So first, let me tell you what it's about. Arboreality is set in the near future in the second half of the 21st century in Vancouver Island, British Columbia. It is a multi-generational climate fiction story that really explores the effects of climate change and sort of the changes in society and the difficulties that ensue on a bunch of different people in this small community in Vancouver Island. It is just such a powerful story, and that multi-generational storytelling aspect allows you to understand how it unfolds over time. So now let me tell you what specifically worked so well for me in this novella, starting with just the writing. I thought that the writing in this was outstanding. It was just beautiful and atmospheric. I loved how slow and in the moment the writing was. This isn't something that's focused on plot or big, world events. It's focused very much on the moment that each of the characters is going through. It has this really pervasive, poignant tone where there's just this sadness over what has happened to the world, but also there's kind of a bittersweet feel where there's still hope and there's still things that humanity is doing. And that writing of that beautiful, poignant feeling just pervades the whole novel, and you just feel so immersed in this atmosphere and in this world. I wanted to read you an example. Maybe there were new wetlands along Westminster Avenue where she'd often walk to the 7-Eleven, mussels growing over the old Starbucks on the corner, and ducks diving into the shallow waters of the expanding Fraser River, all the arable land of Delta salt-soaked, killing the black soil that accumulated over thousands of years. I think that paragraph is a really good example of the way that the writing is in this story, where you're just focusing on those details. You're focusing on being in the moment and seeing what has happened to the world. And I thought it was really spectacular. Another thing I loved about this story was how realistic the world building felt. It felt completely believable that what the characters are going through are just the sorts of gradual changes that you would see in the sort of climate future that we're looking at. Just these gradual increasing of temperatures, worsening of storms, and the very gradual deterioration of a lot of the structures and systems that we take for granted today, and the way that that very slowly affects the community, and they have to adapt to it and they have to figure out what to do to survive. It focuses so much on this zoomed in view of what each of these characters are going through. It sort of gives you hints to maybe what's going on in the world at large, but that's not what you're focused on. You're focused very much on the world that each of these characters is dealing with and their struggles to do things like preserve books or somehow, make their farm survive when there are wildfires that keep happening or storms that keep happening. And it's so grounded in reality that it just feels so real and immersive, and I absolutely loved that. I also thought that the characters in this were really engaging. I think that it's very difficult when you are doing a multi-generational story and you have so many switches and perspectives to grow attached to the characters, but I became very attached to the characters. There's lots of different characters that you're with and you like them to different amounts. Some of them are a little bit dislikable, and some of them you just empathize with so deeply. They each have different motivations, and you get so into their heads and into their emotions and what they're trying to do. And you really feel for them, and you feel as they're going through all of these trials and tribulations, what they're feeling. I was so moved by so many characters' stories in this. There was one in particular that I just cried my heart out. It just, what they're going through is so difficult. And there's other ones where you feel hopeful, and you see the beauty of what they're doing. But it was just really emotionally engaging for all of these characters. And finally, one of the things that I think was just so stand out in Arboreality was the way that the discussions in this were just so nuanced. There is such a play with duality in this story where it really truly acknowledges a lot of the awful things that humanity is capable of, but also just talks about the wonder and beauty of humanity. It acknowledges the tragedy of climate change, but also looks at the hope of what new sorts of things that can be built. It really shows, I think, in the way that it talks about the past and present and future in the storyline. So you often have characters who are remembering or reminiscing about the past, and they really acknowledge so many things that were wrong with the way that humanity is living, the overconsumption and just disregard for the earth. But also they miss things like nachos, and they miss being able to, travel and go see places and people. But they really acknowledge how flawed it was as well. And then in the present for the story, you have characters who, they're struggling. It's hard. Things are difficult for them. But also you have these moments of joy and these moments of fulfillment where they're able to find value and meaning in what they're doing. And when it comes to the future, you especially see this with a lot of characters who have kids or who are thinking about what the next generation is going to experience, and just that real grief over the loss of all of these things that they experienced when they were kids, but that their children or the future generations just won't have a chance to have. But also they see all of the different ways that people are adapting and the new things that they're doing, and recognizing that that is a future too, and that they can grow into that. And it's just such a beautiful discussion, and I loved how nuanced it was. Overall, I think that Arboreality is this incredibly beautifully written, really slow and thought-provoking novella that takes a look at what climate change really could mean for different people and how that might play out. It is incredibly well written. I loved the world building and the writing and the characters, and I just highly recommend this. I especially love that this is published by a small press. I always think that it's really neat to see what people are publishing outside of the big mainstream presses, and this is just so worth picking up. So if you guys have read this, or if you're interested in it, I would love to hear from you below. Or if you've read anything else by Stelliform Press, I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts on it. Just leave me a comment down below.